This just in. When former President Barack Obama approved the Iran deal, many called it his lasting legacy, and when he passed Obamacare, his vice president, and current Democratic contender for the nation's most powerful office, called it a big F-bomb deal. And, at this hour, there is breaking news. In continuing litigation against the Merit Systems Protection Board, with regard to a fraudulent withdrawal policy that adjudicative agency published in May 2018, curiously while the Congress was passing a bill, sponsored by House Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings, to address the same problem, Major Mike Webb caught everyone by surprise, filing a memorandum to the Federal District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia to subpoena documents from a list of prominent Democrats, including former President Barack Obama and former presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, to substantiate allegations regarding a lucrative federal job offer to a congressional candidate, for which he was not remotely qualified, which the MSPB has argued to that court does not even remotely resemble an attempted bribe to persuade him to withdraw from the race. Attorneys for the MSPB had filed a motion to dismiss the action on a claim that Major Mike Webb lacked standing to even bring the suit because he was not a federal employee at the time of the job offer. This argument runs contrary to the express provisions in 5 U.S.C. Section 1221, paragraph A, which explicitly states that any applicant for employment may, with respect to any personnel action taken, or proposed to be taken, against such applicant for employment, as a result of a prohibited personnel practice, seek corrective action from the Merit Systems Protection Board. Attorneys for the MSPB also curiously claim that Major Mike Webb has failed to present any facts upon which a claim can be brought, finding nothing remotely suspect about a person being offered a coveted federal job for which he or she is in no way qualified and for an agency requirement that no longer exists. In a hearing for a motion to dismiss, the court does not attempt to judge the case on the merits, but, in what attorneys refer to as notice pleading, it only attempts, at this preliminary stage, to determine if there exist sufficient averments to substantiate a legal cause of action that a court can address. At the heart of the request for a subpoena is what is referred to as a deliberative process document that is normally not disclosable under Exemption 5 of the Freedom of Information Act, because it involves interagency or intra-agency memorandums or letters that would not be available by law to a party other than an agency in litigation with the agency. Major Mike Webb asserts that, in mitigation and cooperation, the subject agency involved, the Department of Defense, had practically conceded culpability in the matter and had wished to accept the judgment of the court. And, examination of the document establishes, beyond a reasonable doubt, that senior officials in the Barack administration, including the former Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, were intimately connected to this illegal transaction, and, under law, this coordination represents legally sufficient evidence to support a criminal charge of conspiracy to offer a bribe. Moreover, such a transaction, at such a high level in an executive department, could not have occurred without the knowledge of the former president. Bribery, punishable under 18 U.S.C. Section 201, paragraph B, is not only a felony, punishable by fine not more than 3 times the monetary equivalent of the thing of value, whichever is greater, or imprisonment for not more than 15 years, or both, and the convicted individual may be disqualified from holding any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. Along with treason, bribery is the only specifically listed high crime and or misdemeanor in Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution to be an impeachable offense. But, this is not the end of the worries for the former president, thanks in great part to Congressman Don B.O, who prides himself with having endorsed the former president, and who has also distinguished himself as the first and only member of the congressional delegation from the Commonwealth of Virginia to demand impeachment of the current President Donald Trump. Since his defeat to the moderate environmentalist Charles Hernick at the Republican nomination convention in May 2016, Major Mike Webb, who has been hard at work in a campaign to clean the swamp in Northern Virginia, which is credited with determining the outcome of statewide elections, and where Hillary Clinton prevailed over President Trump by only a minuscule 5 percentage points, and, most recently, he has been preparing a civil action under the Federal Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, commonly referred to as RICO. In a RICO complaint, a plaintiff must sufficiently allege at least 2 predicate acts to establish a racketeering activity, unlawful under the Act, and bribery constitutes one of those criminal defenses under the Act. And, Concurrent with the filing of the request to the court to issue a subpoena to the former President, Barack Obama, Major Mike Webb unveiled that he is also in possession of prima facie evidence of a commission of mail fraud in connection with a letter that he sent via Federal Express to the Vatican, shortly before the November 2016 election. Under the terms of the contract with that commercial delivery service, the letter, mailed on Halloween, was scheduled to arrive at the Congregation for the Causes of Saints in Rome in 3 days, but, immediately after placing the parcel in the custody of Federal Express, Major Mike Webb somehow prophesied that that letter might never arrive, with a humorous post title on Facebook, borrowing from the play, Inherit the Wind, Hail the Apostle whose letters to the Corinthians got lost in the mail. Interestingly, almost immediately after Major Mike Webb had published that post on Facebook, over 30,000 Facebook users were talking about that post. Miraculous in itself. The parcel, mocked by anonymous internet trolls, somehow took 18 days to deliver, despite constant efforts by Major Mike Webb to obtain an answer regarding the disposition of his package. Major Mike Webb engaged in conversations with both Federal Express and the Vatican, and officials at the Vatican, which officials from Federal Express assert was closed for the holidays, confirmed that the package had not arrived. And, perhaps it is only ironic that it was not until well after the election and immediately after Major Mike Webb contacted Federal Express, Congressman Don B.O and President Obama himself, that the then lost package was immediately found and scheduled for delivery. Contrary to popular belief, the 2002 Louisiana Federal District Court case of Livingston Downs Racing Association, Incorporated versus Jefferson Downs Corporation, establishes the proposition that not only parcels placed in the custody of the United States Post Office, but also commercial carriers, may be sufficient to sustain a charge of mail fraud, which requires a false statement, like the claims of Federal Express that the Vatican was closed, upon which the receiver was placed in reliance, causing financial injury, represented in this case at least by the $60 sum that Major Mike Webb had tendered in good faith consideration to that commercial carrier for a 3-day delivery. Interestingly, with regards to mail fraud, federal precedent in Perea versus the United States, a U.S. Supreme Court case, decided in 1954, where one doesn't act with knowledge that the use of the mails will follow in the ordinary course of business, or where such use can reasonably be foreseen, even though not actually intended, then he causes the mails to be used, opening a wide door of potential culpability, under the facts in this bizarre tale of a mail delivery gone foully lost. Culpable parties, including Senator Mark Warner and Congressman B.O, were silent today as these allegations became known, but Senator Keeoing, live streaming an address before a gathering of supporters, appeared to become suddenly startled when Major Mike Webb entered the comment stream, and attempted so hasty a retreat that he was reminded by the sponsors for the event that he had agreed to take some questions from the audience. Major Mike Webb was blocked from commenting shortly thereafter. Still, as has been the standard operating procedure for the Democrat Party activists since Mike Webb's entry into politics in Northern Virginia, the trolls were most active today, including a bizarre incident involving a supporter of Congressman B.O and Senator Keeoing contacting Major Mike Webb via Google Apps, under the notorious scammer name of Michael Warren. The texting troll purported to be calling about an imminent emergency at the House Banking Committee, at which, the caller said, they had better be ready to lock and load, a military marksmanship term, intended to provoke a reaction about a potential gun violence situation. Major Mike Webb quickly identified the hoax and reported the incident to local police, while the perpetrator attempted first to defend himself by calling Major Mike Webb crazy, and then suggesting that he thought that he was calling an FBI agent, on Google Apps. Wholly incredible. Please stay tuned for more breaking news, as this story continues to develop. At WEBB, we get the news first. Back to you, in the studio Mo.
these things. So we dropped it from 20 to 17. So we're moving in the right direction. So we just, a lot of things that are complicated and important.